Hi guys, we are here to talk about Tan, talk about Mr. Tan. We're going to share what happened. We're going to share some of our favorite things about Tan, and then at the very end there will be a nice long lovely tribute of a bunch of videos of our boy. The first thing we'd like to do is to thank everybody for all of your condolences and your sweet messages and your sweet comments. They were
very meaningful.
Yeah, they were very meaningful. And it just kind of blows both of our minds that
many people cared about our little man.
Yeah, exactly that. Like, it blows our minds. And not only him, but us too. Like, the amount of you who have reached out to console us, and it's just unbelievable. Like, I knew we had a lot of you out there, and I know that a lot of people on the internet will say this, but I just feel like we have such a good core group of people who follow us and support us and care about us and our animals and our farm and our house and our space and everything that's important to us, and that's all we could ask for. It's all we could ask for. So we just wanted to give our sincere appreciation to every single one of you that reached out. What I wanted for Tan's memorial post more than anything was for everybody to just come and talk about how much they loved him and how much he meant to them and the ways he lit up everybody's life and brought so much joy. And so thank you so much to like the 99.9% of you
Yeah.
that showed up and did that and respected the fact that we just needed to grieve and we needed to wrap our heads around everything that happened, because there's a lot of should've, would've, could'ves, and we've beat ourselves up a lot over the last 8 days.
Not a thing we'd change.
Yeah. So we will go into the story, full story. It might be a little PC because it's hard to talk about, and there's parts of it that happened the night before and parts of it that happened the day of. I just want you to know that this is the one and only time that I will ever be talking about, or we will ever be talking about, the actual death of Mr. Tan, because
We don't want all the "you should have done this."
yeah, it's just, it's
Because
already,
they don't know him, we do.
it's already so hard, and it's also one of those things that I can't respond to with the amount of people who follow us and the amount of people who've asked. Like, I can't have that conversation over and over and over and over again, because it's just too hard. It's just too hard. So I know that this is a safe space here. The majority of you who've come here to watch this video are our true MVPs, our diehard followers, the people who really truly care about us. And we always planned to share what happened. We don't feel like this is something we have to do, but we do want to share. We do want to share.
So Tuesday morning, I left for work at, I don't know, 7:30. That's when I always leave. Pulled out because he wasn't here, and always look both directions because it's gut feeling that that's where we were going to see something. You always look. Well, didn't see anything. Got to the top of the hill, and I found him on the side of the road. He'd been hit that morning, hour before I left for work probably. So I picked him up and brought him home. Had to break the news to Kirsten, which wasn't easy. but it's how that went.
Yeah. Like I said, there are so many should've, would've, could'ves that have gone through our minds. And ultimately, shit. Ultimately, we just had to make the decision like almost 2 years ago now, because we've known that this has been going on for a long time. We had to make the decision of either knowing that this was going to happen at some point and it was going to cause a lot of pain for us and a lot of you, or
watching him suffer every day pinned up because he did not want it.
He did not want it. We've tried, and he didn't want to be an indoor cat. He didn't want to be locked up. He hated any time the door was closed or the windows were up in the car. Enclosed spaces, they just weren't his place. And I wish they were. I wish they would have been, because it's pretty sucky knowing that you couldn't keep him safe. But I will say, we kept him happy.
Yeah.
And we don't go a day not knowing that he was completely loved and completely cared for, because he knew it. We felt it from him, he felt it from us, and yeah. Well, that's what happened.
And I miss him, but I wouldn't change the way we did it with him.
No, me either. We're gonna give you just a little bit of information on like the night before and the day of, just because I think that the universe is so divine, essentially, in the way that it works, and so many things happened leading up to Keith finding him that were just signs that something was off. On Monday night, we went to go feed cattle at the other farms that we rent, and it's very, very typical that Mr. Tan ends up in the pickup giving one of us love before we leave. And it was my turn on Monday night, and in fact, I have a picture of us in the pickup. It's our last photo together, so I'll go ahead and put it right here. I physically couldn't let him go. Like, it's never really an issue. You just open the door and he just hops out and goes back into the barn, and he waits for you to come back, and then we end the night with the gate walk and everything. But I was having such a hard time just like letting him go or opening the door. And Keith's like, come on, Kirsten, we gotta go. I was like, I can't do it. Like, I cannot do it. And I was like, I'm gonna give him to you and then you can do it. And we didn't do that, but Keith did open my door and he immediately jumped out just like normal. It was not a thing, but I just like couldn't let him go that night, and I've never had that before. Like, I needed to stay with him. And then we got back and we did our gate walk, and he was so amazing.
Yeah. In the Instagram, YouTube, whatever it was on, you seen it on, that was the last gate walk.
Yeah.
That wasn't prior. That was the one.
So Then Tuesday morning came around and we were inside just getting our ducks in a row before we walked outside, and I was actually standing in the corner of our kitchen talking to Keith. And I have to preface this with a little bit of a trigger warning because it can be interpreted in many different ways. I would never do anything to hurt myself, but I think we can all feel, I think we've all felt this way, hopefully only a few times, but I know for a lot of people it's much more. I woke up that morning and I was standing in the kitchen and I was telling Keith, I was like, I don't know what is wrong with me today, but I physically feel like I cannot put one foot in front of the other. Like, I don't want to be here today. And I didn't mean like on earth, like alive. I just meant like I couldn't participate in society today. Like, it was just one of those days where I felt incredibly drained. I do have to say that I am an empath, and if you are an empath too, you understand. If you're not an empath, I highly encourage you to Google the difference between having empathy and being an empath. And the way I feel, my empath is a very physical feeling. I don't really necessarily feel it in the mental sense. I feel it in the whole body physical sense. And so that happened, but I managed and we went outside and I didn't really think anything of it. Mr. Tan wasn't at the door when we woke up in the morning, and that's not super uncommon, especially this time of the year as the daylight, as the daylight's changing. He will normally hear us at some point, like doing chores and stuff, and he'll show up. But sometimes he doesn't either. And so we get to the gate walk portion of the morning, and he's still not here, so we do the gate walk. And as we're walking up the driveway, I'm doing my normal Mr. Tan, Mr. Tan. And he normally comes, if he's around, he'll normally come barreling out of the tree line or wherever he was. And Keith, for the first time ever, kind of shocked me because he's like, stop it. And I was kind of like, oh, somebody woke up on the wrong side of the bed this morning. And he said to me, if he could hear you, he'd be here. Is that what you said?
No, he heard you with, I don't remember how he said it.
Something along those lines. If he heard you, he'd be here or something like that. And I was just kind of like, oh, again, not thinking anything of it. There's been many times when Mr. Tan hasn't been here in the morning, and I'll go up like every hour to the shed to make sure he shows up, and he always did. And then Keith got ready to go to work, and for the first time ever, he forgot his phone. Again, something strange for the day. We were actually going to be shutting the gate when he left because we had a cow that needed a little extra care, and we didn't want her getting on the road because she was just using a hot wire up here. And so I started chasing him down the lane, like he was in his vehicle and I was running to give him his phone, and I was like, oh, I'll catch up to him because he's got to get out of the car and shut the gate again. And he forgot to shut the gate and took off. And as I was headed back up to the house, I heard squealing tires. And at that moment, I immediately thought Mr. Tan. And I was like, oh, it's okay. Like, Keith was right there. If something happened, he would have seen it. And so I came inside and I was getting ready to call somebody to tell him that I would bring his phone to him so he didn't have to come home. And as I was getting things situated inside, I heard him coming back up the driveway. So I walked outside to give him his phone, and He just came barreling out of the truck. Yeah, just came barreling out of the truck and couldn't really speak, and we finally got Mr. Tan out, but yeah, it was horrible. It was a really bad day.
All the days of turning out of the driveway, fear of seeing it finally happened.
And then we went through all of the things we should have done differently, and like I said, we both have felt that this was going to be the way he died for a couple years now, and it's almost like, did our brain power make this happen? So then we're mad at ourselves, and then we're mad because he didn't really like lemon and lime, and there are just so many things that entered our brains the next 3 days. And we just, I mean, we mentally beat ourselves up. And I wish he was here. I wish he was here. But I think we're both finally at a place where we know that he lived the best life he wanted to live, and
got to do it the way he wanted to.
And we respected his boundaries. Yeah. I think it's time that we move on to some happy things about Mr. Tan. I think you would be shocked to know that Mr. Tan didn't really like people.
No. Me and Kirsten, two of the people that house sit, and that's about it.
Yeah.
You show up, he heard your voice, he was gone.
Gone. He would hide.
Unless we were with him, he was okay. But other than that.
And even if we were with like the other person, he wouldn't like, if we picked him up, he'd usually get down.
Yep.
And he'd just kind of be like off into the distance, but he did not like people.
He saved every ounce of love for us, I believe. 'Cause he had none to give to anybody else, and he wasn't going to either.
No.
He didn't really love his siblings. Him and Sage got along the best. Sage had to give him an attitude adjustment about once every 2-3 weeks, but they were the best. They were actually pretty good pals, but never.
Sage was definitely Mr. Tan's best friend.
He cuddled with them when he was little, but the last 2 years, loner, just always by himself. Unless it was with Sage, he was by himself. You never knew where you were going to find him. You'd say, "Where's Tan?" He'd just appear. It was the weirdest thing you ever seen.
We had this saying like, "Where him's gonna be," and we'd say it like every time we walked outside, because you just never knew. He might be in his king chair out back. He might be out front underneath the Adirondack chairs. A lot of times he's on the side of the house, up in the hay bales, underneath the pickup and trailer. And there's like this big pile back behind our house, like a big brush pile that we've kept around for 4 years because the cats love it so much, in the garden. And you wouldn't even see him. Like, a lot of times you would have no idea where he was, but he would hear our voices, and the next thing we knew, this is one of my favorite things ever, the next thing we knew, we'd hear a and like you'd look over and he would be giving the biggest stretch. I don't think I've ever seen a cat stretch as stretchy as he did. And then he'd slowly wobble over to you for loves, but he was something special.
But as far as jumping up, only on the gate walk.
Yeah.
In front of the shed, around the house, you couldn't get him to do it. And it was only when he wanted to do it. If he didn't want to do it, You couldn't talk him into it.
Yeah, you'd have to pick him up. A lot of times he'd want picked up. He wouldn't want to jump, and so you'd do that. A lot of times if we're like crouched down in the garden or something, he might jump up on our back. But another thing about Tan, I think, and I have to remind you guys that you only see like a couple minutes of our day, if that. But another thing about Tan is he was extremely lovey, right? Like when he was on us and around us, but he spent the majority of his time just like off to the side around us.
He wasn't pesty.
Yeah.
He wasn't a leg rubber.
Yeah.
He didn't beg for love like some cats and you trip over him. You never tripped over Tan. Not a needy cat.
No, he wasn't needy at all. And I think that would be completely shocking to most people because from what we've shown you guys, you would think that he was extremely needy, but he wasn't. Like, and also if I found him in the garden and like picked him up out of the garden and cuddled him and gave him like 5 minutes of my time, then I could set him back where he was or off to the side or something and go about my garden business. And he wouldn't like request attention until I was done with anything. Like he'd just sit and mind his own business and do his own thing and give himself a bath and look cute and be there when you were ready again.
But when he loved,
oh gosh,
I've never ever felt or seen a cat love like he loved.
Yeah, it was something special, and I hope, like, it is my hope that every single one of you can experience that at some point in your life, like that kind of love from an animal, because it was just like extraordinary. There's no other way to put it. It was extraordinary. If you could have one moment, like one single moment back with Tan, what would it be?
2 things.
I said one.
The last gay walk.
The last gay walk.
And checking cows in the winter. Because he'd always come find me.
Yeah.
Every day. If I was out at 2 in the morning, it didn't matter. He'd come find me. I'd see him in my headlamp, little eyes, chirp, and here he'd come. And he'd stay on my shoulder. It didn't matter how far or how much I had to do. In the middle of his little journey, he'd come all the way back to the house. Probably turn around as soon as I let go of him and go right back, but he had to spend that time with me and doing that. I cherish that.
Yeah.
That's stuff a dog would do, not a cat.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, he wasn't built like a cat. I will say that. He was not really a cat personality.
no.
Well, besides not liking people.
Yeah.
But
He
a little bit of everything.
Didn't play.
No, you couldn't get him to play for anything. Like, you could put anything in front of him and he not interested. Not interested at all. But he could hunt.
Yeah, he could. He could kill a cardinal out of the garden in the middle of nowhere. He loved cardinals.
Yeah, he could hunt. He could hunt.
So what's one thing you could want to have back?
Kind of like you, there's so many things, it's so hard to choose, but I think if there was one thing, if I could only choose one moment, it would be our garden cuddles. That's another thing. You guys got to see our gate walks, and then once in a while you'd get to see other things here and there, but there were things throughout every single day that were so special that just weren't recorded. Like, he would spend so much time in the garden with me, and if you know, we have raised beds, and so they're like, how tall would you say they are?
2.5 foot.
2.5 foot. So he would be like in the garden bed, and I could just go over to the side of the garden bed and sit on it and wrap my arms around him, and he would just like lay his head down and maybe make some biscuits and just purr, and he would literally be like asleep the whole time. And that was a very common thing for us.
And I don't film. I don't like to talk on film. I don't necessarily like the phone in my face. I've had a lot of good days with my buddy. But I'm so glad that Kirsten did do it, because now I have that. I didn't lose it all.
Yeah. Just remember that these little tiny pieces that you guys would see on our page. There were so many more of them. So many more of them. I mean, I'd see his little legs trot across the backyard, and I know he was headed to the shed, and I'd be in the kitchen doing something, and I'd pop out the back door and yell for him, and he'd come, and we'd hang out back here on the patio and cuddle for a while, and then he'd go off and do his thing. But yeah, there was just so many moments throughout the day, and I think that's what's been the hardest is we don't have kids, right? And so we spend a lot of time with our animals, and nearly all of our routines were built around Mr. Tan and making sure that he had the love that he needed, and making sure that we were back in time so that we could do the gate. Like even at family functions and stuff, like we'd try to make sure that we were back in time so that we could do gate walk with Mr. Tan as the sun set. And there are just so many routines that were built around him in our day that when we go and do those routines now, it's hard.
Yep.
It's really hard.
Sage has not been the same since the day it happened.
He's definitely missing his best friend.
And he's harder for you guys to see. He's a little skittish.
Yeah, he's very skittish.
But when you get the last week, it's been a new guy. He wants to be held more, and that's not him.
Yeah.
He's a 30-second, you might get a good cuddle in. He's uncomfortable or something spooks him, or he's ready to move on to the next thing. But he's really picked up the slack.
Yeah, he's carried a lot of our grief.
Yeah.
A lot of our grief. And I think on like the third night, Keith was hanging on to him. He was holding him like right outside the garage. And it just like completely dawned on me in that moment. And I looked at him, and if you've seen any of the pictures of Sage, I think you probably know what I'm talking about when I say when he looks at you with his eyes, they cut right through you. Like he is a soul cat. Like he knows when something's wrong with you immediately, and his eyes just penetrate. They just penetrate. When Keith was holding him the other night, I looked at him and his eyes were just penetrating me. And I just remembered for a moment that he just lost his best friend too. This sweet cat has been carrying us through our grief for the last 3 days. And I just looked at him and I was like, I am so sorry, buddy. Like, I am so sorry. And he just looked at us, and he kind of like did this thing into Keith and gave us a few of those, his little chirpy things. I can't really do them.
No. He talks.
He talks, but he's a sweet, sweet boy. They're all sweet. They're all sweet. There's only a few of them that would like to come down to the house, and that's Mr. Tan, Sage. Mulberry will sometimes come down to the house, Oreo, and Marshmallow. Everybody else stays up at the shed. And so they've just become a part of our routines.
Yep. It really means a lot to me and Kirsten that Mr. Tan was able to bring so much joy to a lot of you all that have lost past pets, lost anything, that he was able to somewhat fill a void in his short life.
I didn't realize that so many of you had come to our page as a way to cope with the loss of your special furry little friends, and it just broke my heart to have to tell you that another special friend of yours had left. But yeah, it's just mind-blowing. It's mind-blowing that one tiny little creature like Mr. Tan can bring so much love and joy to the homes of like so many people worldwide. It's just,
I know Kirsten's gonna get back in the groove. She's gonna try her hardest to make videos that still will bring joy without Mr. Tan, but we have a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
We got other babies.
There's still a lot of joy on this farm.
Yep.
Like that was...
It's not the same, nor will it probably ever be. But there's lots of happy things every day that happen that you all didn't see before. Maybe that you'll see more of that now that we have this empty void, and still help people, hopefully, because we're not doing this for fame or fortune. Kirsten's doing this because she thoroughly enjoys it. She just loves it.
Our Instagram page was started in 2021, and it was named Scotch Paired with Pepper +8. This was before Mr. Tan was even born. And I posted to it for a few months and I stopped. And then in 2023, I changed the name to KL2 Farms and started back up in like February of 2023 during our calving season, and started sharing calving videos, and they were getting some traction. And then I put Mr. Tan up.
And then it took off.
Yeah, in April of 2023, he blew the socks off the internet, and I'm just so grateful that our home and our space and our way of life can just like make you guys feel lighter. Like the amount of people who come to us and say that they are so happy to wake up in the morning to us because it sets them up for their day, or they're so happy to come home from us after a long day at work and like have something happy to look towards. That's my main goal with this page.
It won't be negative.
Yeah.
Got enough negativity in our life. We don't need it to be on here.
Yeah. Like I do want to share some of our real and raw moments on the farm, because I think that's important. I want to teach you guys too about farming and farm life. But my ultimate goal with this page is just to spread joy and to remind you guys that you've got to take the little moments, because the little moments build the big life. And if you don't pay attention to those little moments, and you stop taking those little moments, and you just keep taking them for granted, like
they'll be gone.
Yeah, they'll be gone.
Flash of an eye.
So I think that's definitely what we've portrayed here on this page. And I will be back. We will be back. I will continue. There will be a massive empty hole. It will be hard. It will be hard. But we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. And I just want to thank you guys again for being here for us and being here with us and continuing to be here and loving our space and our farm and our animals and us.
Thank you.
Yeah. We will see you guys soon. I'm not sure when I'll pick things back up. I might have already by the time you guys see this video. I don't know. But we will be back. I can promise you that. We will be back. Things will look different, but we will be back. Thank you again and again and again and again and again for all of your love and condolences. And we'll see you soon.
Bye.
Bye, guys.